Hello, everyone, and welcome to MeowMix, a Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven,
My name is Jerry.
and today we are here to talk about free agency. We're going to tell you who the Panthers absolutely must go after. And if they don't, well, they could also go after some of these other people. But Jerry and I have made a list of free agents that we'd like the Panthers to go after. We have not compared lists, so if we double up on some, that's okay. I think we might have looked at this a little differently. I had a couple of guys that I think are top tier that maybe the realistic that the Panthers might not be able to afford them. But most of the other guys I have, I think are possible. I think you went a little different and maybe looked at you wanted to sign all of these guys.
Yes, that's exactly how I did it. I tried to put it in perspective. Now, I know that they can't afford all of these guys together, but
Yeah.
I was seeing that we had $22 million in cap space. So let's try to spread that wealth out as much as possible instead of just going big money, one guy. I mean,
Gotcha.
if you want to go that way,
Well, you know,
understand that too.
they can work the deals in such a way where the first year is, a little lower. And I mean, next year the Panthers have a ton of cap space. So
You're absolutely correct.
easily backload these deals. So I think some of these guys that we're going to talk about might be, maybe they are realistic, but I'm going to let you go first, Jerry, and you tell me who your number one free agent to be is.
I am stealing this man from you from last year. Cornerback Chidobe Awazi, cornerback from Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
He is a free agent now, and he's
Didn't have that great of a year.
He didn't have that great of a year, but he's a better zone corner, and that seems to be what the Panthers are now playing, or not now, but are playing under Matt Rule. So I think you could get him fairly inexpensive, 5 to 7 or so million. And he's younger. Just see if he can kind of work opposite of Deshaun Jackson.
Okay. I like that. And I'm not going to go my number one guy, but I'm going to dovetail off your corner pick here, and I'm going to raise you a corner of my own. Ronald Darby from Washington, 27 years old. Yeah, he doesn't get a lot of interceptions, but he plays really good coverage, and I think he'd be a strong opposite of Deshaun Jackson there, or not Deshaun Jackson.
Dante Jackson.
Jesus. Football, come back. I'm losing my mind here. So Ronald Darby, I don't know how expensive he would be.
That's
he's still fairly young. So here's the deal, though. I think that you're going to see some of the higher end, like the very, very high end free agents are going to get the normal amount of money. But once you hit that second and third tier of free agent, I think they're going to be a lot cheaper than they would normally because of the cap this year.
Yes.
So some of these guys like a Ronald Darby might be surprisingly affordable.
And I'm very interested in how this is going to play out with this lower cap this year.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of teams that are really still strapped.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go snake style here. So I'll go now. So I'll just give you my pie in the sky here. Trent Williams. Okay. Offensive tackle from the 49ers this year, formerly of the Washington football team. He's 32 years old, but still playing at a very, very high level. I don't think the Panthers would be able to afford him. I think he's probably going to be one of those top tier 1 free agents that gets the normal amount of money.
17 million a year. Yeah. I was going to put him as my top guy. But again, I was thinking trying to sign actual, players. And I think we can afford this gentleman here, this tackle, Alejandro Villanueva from Pittsburgh, left tackle. Gave up 3 sacks last year. He's not a top tier left tackle, but I think he's a good left tackle where we could plug him in with Moten on the right side. We could get Dennis Daly on that right guard and maybe find another guard somewhere else in the draft or whatnot. And we'll be good for a little while until we can find another left tackle.
You could also consider a Kung, bringing a Kung back.
I thought about him.
He's still, he's in that same age range, low 30s. But if he came back healthy, then he's probably, yeah. I mean, he had I think I was reading, he had a 70 PFF score or above in 5 of his 6 starts. Of course, he only started 6 games, so that's where you have to wonder. But,
yeah, and I want to say Alejandro is a little bit younger than him. I can't. Okay. I think he was in his no, he was 32.
Okay. Yeah, these, but the offensive left tackles, they can play into their mid to mid late 30s. So like I'd say like 36, 37, they could still be very effective. So, all right, you're up again.
I'm going to a name that is said on this program quite often. Wide receiver, Curtis Samuel. And originally I didn't think we were going to be able to afford him. But then I was starting to look at it, and with Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Golladay, there's going to be some top tier wide receivers above him. And he doesn't have the stats to say top tier money. And I think we can maybe get a solid deal for him in 2-3 years, get him under contract, and then we'll probably have to pay him in 2-3 years, because I think last year was just his first, and he knows what Matt Rule's offense is going to do. And Matt Rule knows him and likes him, and that's why I went with him.
No, he's on my list as well. Yeah, he's one of the ones that I definitely want. There's also Corey Davis, I think, might be considered above Curtis Samuel. So I think Samuel at best is 4th wide receiver, but there's a few others. I'll talk about one a little later. But yeah, I think Curtis Samuel could be like 6 to 8 million a year, something like that. And again, if you backload that contract and the cap hits low up front, then I think that's doable.
And you could do incentive based too. I mean,
yeah, but I think he's going to have some offers. True. I think Washington is going to go after him pretty hard. Just my feeling on that with Rivera. Yeah. And maybe even someone like the Giants,
who, I think Kettleman drafted him. So
yeah. And the Giants just gave out, or they Golden Tate, they released him. So they are probably in the market. So I'll go now. I got Joe Thuney, guard from the Patriots. Gave up or did not miss a single snap last year, along with Moten, I believe. They were the two. So just thinking of bolstering our offensive line, he's a guard, so he's not a tackle, but pairing him with Moten, I think, is going to be, on that right side would be really nice. Then you either draft or find Alejandro maybe there in free agency, and all of a sudden your offensive line looks pretty good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Thuney would be a great addition. Then you kind of solidify the guard spots. I think Dennis Daly is still penciled in at one of the guard spots. And then you have Thuney, Paradis, Moten, and then you just have to fix that left tackle, like you said.
Yeah. So let's see. Darby, Thuney, I said Trent Williams. All right. I'm just going to go, I'm going to go offense. I'm going to go Jonnu Smith, tight end. 41 catches, 448 yards last year, 8 touchdowns. He's great in the red zone. Hunter Henry's out there, right? I think he's going to be one of the tier 1 guys that's going to get the money. But Jonnu Smith, I think, would be a reasonable contract and would just be a massive upgrade over what we have. He's not a top end tight end. He's not going to be Travis Kelce, but he would be a big improvement.
I did look at Jonnu Smith, but when I looked at him, I saw Spot Rack have him at a $12 to $13 million a year player. Him and Henry were both that, and I was shied away from him because of that. I like him and Henry and
Yeah.
would be happy with both of them. But I went ahead and I put tight end Trey Burton on there. I figured you could get him cheaper. He's a little bit, he's young. He had some breakouts in Philadelphia. Then he went to Indianapolis and nothing happened. I think you could maybe try to build on it. He's proven a little bit more than Ian Thomas, and then, let those two compete it out.
I just don't know if Trey Burton, I mean, you know, is he that big of an improvement over Ian Thomas? Like if you're talking about bringing him in to battle with Ian Thomas, and
I
again,
think he is better,
you and
but
I sort of did this a different way, right? You're thinking more along the lines of we signed this guy and then 10 other guys, and I'm thinking, well, if we're gonna, what would be a great upgrade for us? And again, 12 to 13 million a year doesn't necessarily mean 12 to 13 million against the cap this year. So I do think, it's possible. But yeah, I would be happy with Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith. But I went Jonnu Smith just because I thought he might be a little cheaper. All right, you got the next two.
I only have one more. I think somehow we skipped.
No, I think this is right.
Okay.
Because I got one more too.
All right. I have defensive tackle. You know him, you love him, KK Short. I think bring him back on a 1 or 2 year deal for like $3 million to $5 million a year. Somebody needs to be next to Derek Brown. I also look at Sheldon Rankins here because I want in our defensive tackle. I like Zach Kerr, but I like having at least 3 quality guys there. And I think KK Short coming back, he doesn't have to move, makes a little bit more money. I don't think he's going to get much money on the open market with his injury past.
Yeah. I thought about him. And if you can get him for $3 million a year, then hell yeah, let's do it. But his injury concerns just are really concerning to me. So I wouldn't want to spend anything more than that. Mm-hmm. And I think the Panthers are with Zach Kerr, who played very well last year, and you've got Derek Brown, and you've got Obata, who could, play some of that position
Obata's
as well.
A free agent.
I'm assuming they're going to bring Obata back. He's on my list here a little later, but I'm assuming they're going to bring him back. So I'll go with my last guy real quick, and then we'll kind of talk other potential signings. So there's 2 here that I like, but I'm going to go Trey Hendrickson, defensive end from the Saints. 13 and a half sacks last year. He's only 26 years old. And you take somebody from the Saints and they don't get him back. And he gets to play them twice a year. He struggled with some playing time early in his career, but since he's had playing time, he's looked really good. He had a big sack number last year. Put him on the other side with Brian Burns and Brown and potentially Kerr or KK in the middle. That's a good-looking defensive line.
You're absolutely right. And you got to think Etor, too, was coming on pretty good at the end of the season. You can go ahead and spell them, and you could just rotate those guys, keep them fresh and healthy. Yeah, that'd be a scary rotation. Yeah. I think he's going to get a lot of money, I think. But that's...
Yeah. And Hassan Reddick is also out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like an edge / linebacker, so he can kind of play that same position. He had 12 and a half sacks last year. He sort of broke out of nowhere because the year before that he was almost cut, basically. So he would be another one, maybe a cheaper option for the Panthers. So
there's quite a few edge rushers in this draft free agency.
Yeah.
That I would not be surprised if we went and got 1 or 2.
Yeah.
To complement Burns and Etor.
All right, so you want to look at some of these other guys? I've got like 4 names here that are just kind of potentials.
Okay.
Reddick was one of them. How about Jadeveon Clowney? I don't know how expensive he would be because he hasn't been great in terms of stats, but when he's out there, he's productive. He just doesn't put up the numbers. And if you could get him at a decent price, I'd be happy to give him a shot.
Well, yeah, I think you could bring him in. I just don't know what he would cost. That's
I don't know that anybody knows what he would cost.
I like Spot Rack when they give us a little.
Yeah. Market values 1 year, $6 million.
Okay.
6.5. Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious in the future if the organization is going to continue their thought of going strictly young. Because last offseason, that's what they really did, except for Okung.
Yeah.
Is go really inexpensive and young, and we'll see. I'm kind of curious on that.
By the way, Hassan Reddick went to Temple. So just throwing that out there.
What win rule was there?
I'm not sure, but he's a Temple man. So that could be something to point to there. But yeah, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney is basically the same price as Stephen Weatherly, the money that Stephen Weatherly got from Minnesota. Who, by the way, Stephen Weatherly said, I don't know if you saw this. He said basically that when he got the money from Carolina, he just said this. When he got the money from Carolina, yeah, I could have played harder. I got a little complacent, and I didn't give it my all. Essentially, he said complacent, but I'm paraphrasing the rest of it. But yeah, like screw you, guy. We were expecting big things from you, or at least for you to be competent. Yeah.
I mean, he was never. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I didn't like hearing that. All right, you want to go? I got a couple other ones here, but you got any that you want to talk about?
Here's another one, another guard, Matt Feeler from Pittsburgh. It feels like I'm just trying to pick Pittsburgh guys, but I'm not. Another guy that's going to be maybe not the best, but another quality guy.
Yeah.
Maybe get him cheaper. Again, I think you and I have both kind of had the same thought of really trying to make sure this offensive line is patched together again.
Well, we're Panthers fans, so we are scarred from watching the defensive line the last several years. So yeah, I wouldn't mind if the Panthers, if they're the amount of money they're gonna spend. I mean, they've already spent it on Moton. If they just continue that and bolster this offensive line to where whoever's back there has a chance,
I'm gonna throw out another name.
Okay.
I am such a homer, but I'm going to say this name and I'm going to almost hate myself for saying it. Cornelder.
No, I love Cornelder. I think that we should re-sign Cornelder. I think he'd be cheap.
He was really good in the slot. If you can go, you have Action Jackson on the outside. You have to find somebody opposite and then put Cornelder back in that slot. I think that's a good spot for him. He doesn't need to go to the outside. If outside, he's dangerous for the for Panthers. He's going to make them lose. But inside, that's where he's at.
No, I agree. I'd sort of put him down at the bottom of my list of just people to mention of the Panthers that I'd like to bring back. He and KK. Let me ask you about this. We could bring back Mike Davis. Okay, if the contract is right. What do you think about Marlon Mack? He tore his Achilles last year. He's only 25. But if the money is right, like if you could get him for the same price as Mike Davis, that would be a steal in my opinion.
Absolutely.
You're hoping that the injury is healed or will be healed by the time the season starts, but I like that idea. Him or like Chris Carson, but I think Chris Carson might be more expensive. But just, a guy that if McCaffrey goes down again could step in and has a history of, being able to put up big numbers.
Or Jamal Williams, Green Bay.
Yeah. Is he a free agent?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, so they're losing Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones?
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a smart move not to tag Aaron Jones.
Yeah. All right, I got one more name for you.
Okay.
And this is just assuming that we don't re-sign Curtis Samuel and we need a wide receiver. And I'm taking a page out of your book here, and I'm going to somebody that I think would be affordable. Nelson Aguilar. Right? Sort of a bust in Philly. Didn't really play up to his potential, but he had a really good season with the Raiders last year. Only 48 catches, but almost 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. 18.7 yards per catch. So I think he, would do well sort of as a burner who, even though we signed Robbie Anderson in that role, didn't really play that role this year. He was definitely a more of a route guy. So I think that he would fit in well with the offense.
Well, we don't know if he was getting open downfield and Teddy Bridgewater just refused to throw to him because
That's true.
I mean, but I would be fine with Nelson Aguilar if Curtis Samuel left. I agree with you. I think he has potential still.
Yeah.
And he could, in a different offensive scheme, like he did with the Raiders, kind of break out and have a really good season.
Yeah. And there are we
no.
talked about some of the wide receivers, but after the first few, it does sort of fall off.
See, I disagree. I think there's a lot of big names out there.
That's what I'm saying. There's some big names. Like, let's just look at the names for wide receiver. Like, you've got Galladay, right? You've got Will Fuller,
Juju Smith-Schuster,
Curtis Samuel, Corey
Antonio
Davis.
Brown, technically.
Yeah, although I assume he'll be back with the Bucs. T.Y. Hilton, who I know you don't like, but I wouldn't mind giving a shot to him.
I like T.Y. Hilton. I think at 31 years old, I'd be a little nervous about bringing him on this team, but
Marvin Jones was another one that I thought about who would probably be affordable, gives you a big play skill set,
I really like
anybody
Marvin
that
Jones.
plays fantasy football knows about Marvin Jones. And then Sammy Watkins is out there, the perennial disappointment, Sammy Watkins.
D.D. Westbrook. I mean, he's a name that most people may not know, but he flashes.
Yeah. Let's see, Brashard Perryman. He's a fast guy, but again, another guy that sort of always disappoints.
Rashard Higgins. He had almost a 600-yard season last year with Cleveland. Only 26 years old, and he's buried on the depth chart.
Yeah.
Could be a breakout type of guy.
I think Cordero Patterson's another one that you look at for not only from a wide receiver standpoint, but from a special teams standpoint. I don't know. We talk about all these guys, and Curtis Samuel's the one that I want. Like, he gives us the most versatility and just, I think, fits what the Panthers want to do more.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I also think that we know he works in this offense. We know he can. So he's finally been used. Let's bring him back. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. And if you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on our show.